Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. My name is Jack, and today I'm going to be sharing my review of the newest Illumination movie, Despicable Me 4. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications, and join me down below in the comments to share your thoughts on this newest Despicable Me film if you have seen it, and your expectations if you have not. Now, this is the 6th film in this franchise that has been running for 14 years now. I am a huge fan of the original film. I have seen it a million times over the course of my life. The second film I thought was a really solid follow-up, and I really love it. And then I was also a huge fan of The Rise of Gru, the prequel that they did a couple years ago, the second Minions film. I thought it did a really great job tapping into the magic of the first movie. However, with Despicable Me 4 coming around, I honestly did not know how to feel about this next entry. Considering that Illumination movies, especially ones from the last few years, are known to be painfully mid and mediocre, and Despicable Me 3 I was a little bit disappointed by, but the trailers for this film made it look funny enough, so I figured there was a chance there for a pleasant surprise, so I went and saw it with my brother this weekend, and here's what I thought of it, starting with what I liked about it. Now, as someone who loves this franchise, I definitely thought that it was great to see all the core characters again, especially Steve Carell as Gru. He still has that same over-the-top charisma with that wacky voice where you just really want to do impersonations of him. And there's some cute moments in there of him being a good dad to the girls from the original movies, as well as this new baby character who can be a lot of fun at times. The villain, Maxime Lamal, I definitely had a lot of fun with. He's voiced by Will Ferrell, and if I hadn't known that going into this movie, I don't think I would have been able to guess, because he does this crazy over-the-top French accent in here, so it's almost impossible to recognize him. But I like this character because he has a unique backstory with this connection to Gru that we've never really seen in a Despicable Me movie before. And even though it's a little bit underdeveloped here, I think it's still a unique spin, and he's definitely a memorable antagonist. I think that the animation was solid. Say what you want about Illumination as a studio on the story level, but they always know how to deliver stellar visuals and eye-popping movies from start to finish, and the score by the legendary Heitor Pereira I thought was amazing. So as many things as there were that I enjoyed about it, there were a few things I was iffy on, so let's get into some of the mixed elements. And right off the bat, this is very much one of those animated movies where in terms of the humor, they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. It feels like it's gag after gag after gag with tons and tons of subplots, and a lot of it's actually pretty funny. It doesn't matter how old I get, the Minions are always gonna crack me up, and there's this one bit of Agnes and Edith going to karate class that I thought was really funny. But at the same time, a lot of the gimmicks are just cringy and unfunny, and almost none of it has anything to do with the main plot. So many storylines go unresolved. Crazy and disastrous stuff will happen, but this will result in nothing, there's no consequences, so it's almost completely pointless. And then the storylines that do get resolved don't tie back to the main plot in satisfyingly enough of a way where you really feel like they needed to be there. It's very much they're just padding this movie out with gags to stretch out the runtime as much as possible, and it gets a little bit annoying and redundant after a while. And in terms of the things that are just straight up bad, there's not a lot of movie in this movie. I often like to criticize the Super Mario movie for not having very much of a plot, but this made me want to take back every mean thing I ever said about the Super Mario movie. Because at least in the Super Mario movie, there's an actual goal that the heroes are reaching towards and a real conflict preventing them from getting there. Essentially, the premise of Despicable Me 4 is Maxime Lamal breaks out of prison and he wants revenge against Gru, so Gru and the family have to just go undercover and live and pretend to be normal people just in this random town in the middle of nowhere. But why would they have to hide? Gru's taken down supervillains before. We see him take down this specific supervillain in the first 15 minutes of the movie, not to mention that he has help from the Anti-Villain League. So there's no reason why they can't fight this guy, but instead the family's just hiding out like cowards or sitting ducks for the entirety of the runtime, and it's not that entertaining to watch. In this already fundamentally flawed, half-assed plot is barely spent time on. It is in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and it is in the last 15 minutes in the movie. Everything in the middle is just pointless gags to pad out the runtime. Time-wasting crap that does nothing to move the story forward. And my biggest critique of this is the characters don't really take any action against the conflict. It doesn't really feel like they really do anything or have any stake in their own story, like they do in all the previous films. Because whether it be stealing the moon, or preventing Scarlet Overkill from becoming the Queen of England, or stopping El Macho from firing all his missiles, there was always something that had to be prevented or worked towards in the earlier Despicable Me films, an actual goal that the heroes were trying to achieve. But the standard requirement of basic storytelling isn't even in Despicable Me 4. This is essentially the grown-ups of the Despicable Me franchise in the sense where it's mostly gags and jokes spread throughout the entire story with a loose ghost of a plot somewhere mixed in with all of it, but it's mainly focused on making the audience laugh, which can be effective, but not as effective as a good story. And it's on that note that I feel like this franchise has sort of lost its identity. The first film is this movie about the supervillain learning that he'd much rather be a dad than an evil genius, and then the second film where Gru's a good guy. He still does antagonistic or devious things at times, and then we get to see more of this in Minions: The Rise of Gru, and it's just a lot of fun. Despicable Me just isn't about that anymore. He's just this goofy spy dad who doesn't have anything left to learn. It's not like at the start of the story, Gru has some kind of character flaw that he needs to overcome by the end. At the beginning, he's the exact same guy that he is at the end. And that's for the simple reason that there's just been so many of these movies, there's no room for character development left. He doesn't make any mistakes in this movie, and we just don't see him fail anymore. But it's not impossible to keep these movies interesting. All they have to do is just find new directions to take the story. Have new challenges pop up in Gru's life that he has to find ways around that present opportunities for growth. Maybe the girls age, get older, Marco goes to college or whatever, and Gru has to learn to let go and not be an overprotective parent or something. I don't know, just basic animated sequel stuff. Why else do you think Shrek, Toy Story, and Kung Fu Panda are still making passable entries even after 4+ movies in their franchises and decades of existing? It's because change actually happens in these characters' lives. Andy goes to college, so Woody and Buzz can't be with him anymore. Shrek has kids. Poe can't be the Dragon Warrior forever. Challenges arise where these characters are faced with new obstacles to overcome and new ways that the audience can relate to them. All Despicable Me has to do to spice things up is have these characters actually age and treat them like real people. However, that would require effort, and this is an Illumination movie in the 2020s where character arcs have somehow become a foreign concept to them. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on this movie. The main goal of Despicable Me 4 is just to make the audience laugh, and that's what it does. I definitely cracked up a bunch of times in the theater, and I watched it in a packed theater full of a bunch of families, and all the kids in there seem to be having a really good time, which is great. That's what these movies are for, so if it works for them, that's what really matters. And so if you have kids or younger siblings or whatever, this is a movie definitely worth seeing on the big screen. But as a 16-year-old, I can't help but wish there was a bit more of a good story with meaningful characters, especially a couple weeks after the masterpiece that is Inside Out 2. All in all, Despicable Me 4 is just a 6 out of 10. I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, and there's a chance it might be the worst movie in the Despicable Me franchise. But have you seen Despicable Me 4? If so, what did you think of it? And if you haven't seen it, what are your expectations? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear absolutely everything that you'd have to say about this movie. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on when new videos are released. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts on movies and just general reviews, rankings, lists, whatever, then you can go follow me over on Letterboxd. My username is Jack Higgins, then in parentheses, The Geek Gossip. I try to post a lot of stuff on there, so any support over there on the Boxed would mean a lot. One last time, thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a great day. Until next time, YouTube, I will see you on the flip side.